May 25th, 1977 saw the release of George Lucas's Star Wars, which quickly became a surprise blockbuster hit. Often regarded as one of the greatest and most influential movies ever made, it helped change the way movies were made and captured the imagination of a generation. Star Wars quickly became a pop culture phenomenon. Over the course of this series, I will be joined by a number of Star Wars fans from across YouTube and the toy collecting community, as we take a look back at their earliest memories of Star Wars and find out what made Star Wars great. Hello Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here, and welcome to the channel. And welcome to episode 3 of What Made Star Wars Great, the series where I get to speak to like-minded people about their earliest memories of Star Wars and basically finding out what made Star Wars great. And this week, we are joined by the man himself, Sai, also known as Mangafandanga. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good evening. You okay, Stuart?
I'm all right. I'm not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. So the purpose of this series is basically, as you well know, there's been a lot of negativity around Star Wars lately. And look, in my opinion, rightfully so. But let's push that negativity aside and let's get back to the basics, the reasons why we love Star Wars and what made it so great. So, I mean, just on your, just quickly, your thoughts about the negativity on Star Wars so far. Do you find it deserved?
Yeah, I do. I think that the past 12 years, Star Wars has just gone to something that I just don't even recognize anymore. And it's not the case of what they've done with it or what they're trying to do or the idealistics. I was like this from The Force Awakens. I absolutely hated The Force Awakens. I came out of the cinema and had a 2.5-hour rant to Shabby, going mad about it. And I knew then, this is over. This is ruined. And I've noticed that since The Force Awakens, it's just got worse and worse and worse. And then they showed you a new trailer for the Skeleton Crew, which looks like they live on the street in America. And then you've got that activist Rey movie coming. So I'm like, it's not getting any better, you know. So I find it all justified. I think you don't take something as big, the biggest cinematic property in Hollywood, and ruin it like they've ruined it. You know, the backlash has been unbelievable. So
in what way do you think they've ruined it? I mean, is it Disney? Is it Lucasfilm? I mean, there has been some good stuff that has come out of Disney in the last 12 years. Rogue One, Andor, Mandalorian season 1 and 2. Or does that not interest you, any of that stuff?
That's the thing. It's every time they seem to get things right, then it starts to go wrong again. It's like The Mandalorian. Started off so well, such a presence. Then by the time season 3 came round and all these cameos in and out, and the way it was just going, it was like, it's just, there's no passion in it anymore. There's no love for it. It's like the soul's gone. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like there's no.
What would you point that at? Point the finger at? Who would you blame for that? What is the reasons for that, in your opinion?
For me, I don't really believe any blame lays on Kathleen Kennedy. There's no way that Lucasfilm was sold to Disney and they said to Kathleen Kennedy, "You're in charge of everything." The mouse is in charge of everything. And when I look at things like soaps and I look at sports and I look at other movies and other franchises and other big houses like Warner Brothers, they've all seemed to be pushing this woke agenda. All of them.
Yeah.
And for me, Kathleen Kennedy doesn't work for all of them. She doesn't work for Sky Sports, yet we're still seeing the same rubbish week in, week out.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily blame Kathleen Kennedy. But I do blame those at Disney Film. I think that they just tried to go a complete different idea with Star Wars and it just backfired massively. That's what I believe.
So I'm at the opinion of Star Wars was never broken in the first place. Would you agree with that?
I was, until The Force Awakens. Then for me, Star Wars was over. Star Wars was over. I mean, I know that the sequels got the backlashes, and yet it's funny that, since Disney bought Star Wars, you look more now at them sequels like the proper Lucasfilm Star Wars movies. It's like your heart's really warm to them because you know that these were the ones, the final ones, and basically the original team plus a few others. But were Lucas still in charge, whether you liked him or not? People knock the Clone Wars and stuff, and they knock like Attack of the Clones, but we've had 25 years of Clone Wars stories because of that film, because of the mention of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So they weren't that bad, were they? Do you know what I mean?
No. So pushing the negativity aside and stuff like that, let's get into the positive side of things, which is what we're here for. What were your earliest memories of Star Wars?
To me, Return of the Jedi. I'd be alive to say it was any earlier than that. Obviously, the adverts were on the telly, and the adverts played a big part, especially for me, Mark, and my other two brothers growing up. But I loved Return of the Jedi that much. I can remember the whole day, who I went with, what time
Oh,
we
really?
went, what
Wow.
I even had for my tea. That film just blew my arse off. Because as a kid, Stu, I was BMX crazy, and I mean crazy. BMX wallpaper, BMX bed. I broke my thumb on a BMX. I love BMXing. And
Yeah.
then I go and see Star Wars after you see Empire and you see all them on your VHSs and stuff.
Yeah.
And Return of the Jedi, well, that biker scout scene for me it was everything. It was just heaven. I've never seen
Yeah.
a cooler BMX helmet than that biker scout helmet. Then they're on bikes, it goes 600 miles an hour, flying. Honestly, Stu, it changed my whole life, that scene in that film. From then
Really?
on, I always
Really?
knew that was it. Artists, you're sticking to it. And all little things
Wow.
like that started off with Return of the Jedi more than anything. And I had a nasty accident in 1986, and I nearly lost my leg. I was only 10. And me and Mark had come out of the swim baths in Blackpool, and we'd gone across the road messing around on this church. And there's two big, massive iron gates with two big iron pillars holding them up.
Yeah.
And we're swinging on these gates, and the whole thing's fell. And it fell
Wow.
on me, smashed my foot up. I had to go to Preston Hospital, which was the next town outside of Blackpool, because they had a burns unit and it had to be treated like a burn. So I was in
Wow.
hospital for nearly a year. But my dad was a musician. He was a professional musician. And what he'd done is I had a ghetto blaster, a boombox next to my bed. And my dad, through the VHS, had put the whole of Return of the Jedi on cassette tapes, on 4 tapes it was.
Yeah.
And that was a bit like, it was a burns unit. And as a 10-year-old kid, it used to frighten me to death going to sleep at night. Some of
Yeah.
these kids in my ward had such horrific things happen. It was hard work getting to sleep. So I just used to put my Return of the Jedi cassettes on, put my headphones on, and that's how I'd go to sleep for nearly a year. And
Wow.
the film just means so much to me, Stu. It's like, how could you do what you've done today knowing that was... But again, I suppose that's my preference. Not everybody does agree with me on the new Star Wars. They don't, so...
No. I get that. Listen, it's all about opinions. But
Yeah,
today it's about your opinion. And I like the way that you've tied in that you like BMXing, and then you see that speeder bike. So when you went back,
yeah.
when you went back on your BMX after that, did you ever pretend you was on a speeder bike?
When did I not, Stu? I'm 48 years of age. I'll get on my bike now up that prom, and I am still that biker scout flying.
That is.
Don't you worry. But this time I'm on Tatooine because it's Blackpool. So I'm on
So,
Tatooine instead of Endor.
so talk us through your day then. Talk us through your day, that day that you went to go and see Return of the
Well,
Jedi.
what happened was it was a Saturday afternoon. It was red hot. And we had two cousins that were older than me and Mark. Me and Mark were 9 at the time. And my cousin Leonore and my cousin Natalie, they were a few years older. They were like 15, 16. Return of the
Yeah.
Jedi had come out. And it wasn't planned that we were going. We were supposed to be doing something else. But I think we all were doing my grand's heading. And my grand said, if you want, I'll give you all some money. Why don't you go to the pictures and see the new Star Wars film? So I got like double excited. I couldn't believe we were going. And my cousins could take us. You felt a bit adult. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I went with me, Mark, Leonore, and Natalie. And we all went to see it. And it honestly blew my head off. I remember coming home, and at the corner of my grand street, there was a shop, and my gran used to call him the robber because his prices were always a bit dear. So every time you got the shop, my gran would always say, Nick to the robbers, Nick to the robbers. But he had Return of the Jedi stickers there at the time.
Oh, cool.
And I remember
Yeah.
and you know what? I still own them stickers to this day.
Really?
I'd say that
Dirty
film
guess
made
you've
such
never
an
opened them.
impact.
You've never opened them.
Yeah, I opened them
Oh, you
because of the
opened them.
age I was. I was
Oh,
like that, but
yeah.
I ripped the top off, opened them up so I could put them back in like a sleeve, and I've still got them to this day. I just loved Return of the Jedi.
So you say it changed your life and stuff like that. What was it specifically then about Return of the Jedi that changed everything for you? What makes it come above Empire Strikes Back, and which is a lot of people's favorite, and then Star Wars again, a lot of people that favorite film. What was it about Return of the Jedi that just did it for you?
For me, I always put Empire third, and not for the sake of it's the trendy thing to say or anything. Empire is the most loved Star Wars film, and understandable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
performances alone in Empire. Luke Skywalker on Dagobah in Empire is one of the best acting I've ever seen. He made that puppet believable. You
Yeah,
actually believe that puppet was there, all because of Mark Hamill. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
But Return of the Jedi, Stu, it just got stylistic. It just looked brilliant. Darth Vader never looked as good. The Emperor, even though he was built up, was one nasty shit in Return of the Jedi.
yeah,
The Emperor's Guard, I've never seen anything as cool as
yeah,
that when I was a kid.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It just went. I mean, I've always been Empire. My Star Wars is Empire. That's what I love. I've always been one for the villains. If it's Transformers, it was the Decepticons. I've
yeah,
always Skeletor's lot in He-Man, because I always felt sorry that they could never get the mission done because they were always surrounded by donuts. And it used to always
yeah,
annoy me. The kid, I used to think if like Megatron and the Emperor didn't hang around with these people, to do it. You know what I mean? I was always like that. But yeah, I just think it just went mega. It didn't. It just looked good. Return of the Jedi. It was
yeah,
like some scenes. Like my twin brother's favorite scene, the scene where Luke gives himself in, gets off the attack, meets Vader. That is one of the greatest scenes in all of Star
yeah,
Wars. It's just
yeah,
talking.
yeah,
I love Return of the
yeah.
Jedi. Love it.
I mean, I recently I did my top 10 lightsaber battles, or lightsaber duel, should I say? And the one with Luke and Vader from Return of the Jedi, that was my top duel. Um, just simply because you've got that scene where Luke's given himself in. He's gone to face the Emperor. He's trying to save his dad and redeem his dad. And the Emperor's just nothing but he knows exactly what he's doing. He's so manipulative, and he's goading Luke into trying to flip and use his anger and stuff like that. And just the way he's doing it, he's so cunning. He's very on top of his. He knows what he's doing, sort of thing, and which I thought was brilliant. But the dialogue that got it for me was when Luke's hiding from him because he's fighting him, and he says, "Oh, you're unwise to lower your defenses." He launches his lightsaber. That whole like stair lock comes down, doesn't it? That platform,
Yeah,
and Luke's hiding, and Vader's walking around, and he's like, he can sense his feelings for his friends, and he goes, "Oh, especially for sister, if you will not turn, then perhaps you will." That for me is just absolute genius writing, and that set that tone in
it
that
is.
scene. It was as a fight scene or a lightsaber duel, it in comparison to what we've seen in some of the prequels, I mean, with the double-bladed lightsabers and stuff like that. But I just think the story behind it, the emotion behind that duel, and the wording that went with it, and the dialogue and the music as well, it just set that tone beautifully. And that was just that. Yeah, that stuck with me. That stuck with me for a long time.
I think the thing about that scene that stuck with me is that it shows a proper father and son relationship.
Yeah,
That no matter how much the Emperor is at him, all sorts of stuff. You think they're safe on Endor? You think your mates are going to do this? Do you think you've
yeah,
walked in here and I don't know? And Luke never gives in to him. But it's only when Vader susses him, you've got sister. Already you've given yourself away to the dark side because this guy can read your thoughts, and it's that what sets him off. Nothing to
yeah,
do with the Emperor. It's that what sets him off. Like that
yeah,
family sort of involvement. Do you know what I mean? Where for a fact your brothers and your sisters, they can get under your skin more than anybody you'll ever know in your life because they know
yeah,
what
yeah,
buttons to press.
yeah,
And I just like that element that no matter how hard the Emperor tried, he wasn't giving in to him, but he did give in to his dad. Once his dad started giving it, hang on a minute, you've got a sissy, you've just basically told me. Right,
yeah,
you're not going to turn up. And that's what sends him off. And that's the thing, even when you see him at the beginning in Return of the Jedi, in that black Jedi Knight outfit, you're like,
yeah,
what's happened to Luke Skywalker here? Like, all of a sudden, Luke just went to just a different level of cool all of a sudden, like,
yeah, yeah,
especially to
yeah.
Empire fans that were like, "Oh my god, he's going to turn to the dark side." He didn't, like,
Well, that's
obviously.
that's what I thought was. I thought that
Mm.
was going to happen because at the end he's chopped his hand off, and you see Vader's robotic stump, and then you see Luke doing that, and he's clenching his. He's got a robotic hand, and you think, oh, hang on a minute, is he gonna succumb? Is he gonna like turn to the dark side? But then he just throws his lightsaber away and says, "No, you failed. I'm Jedi," and stuff like that. And yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, you're absolutely right. The bond between the father and the son, and I don't think as cunning as Palpatine was, I don't think he really sort of like saw that coming. He couldn't foresee that happening because he would have,
no,
you know what I mean?
And even in his destruction, it's his dad that destructs the Emperor. It's his dad
Yeah,
that says, right, obviously, he's not going to give in. He's a lot more stronger with the Force than you and me are put together.
yeah.
And he just goes, why did you always think that he did that? Why did he throw Palpatine? Why did he pick him up and destroy him? When it was so adamant over 3 movies that, Luke, you are joining us. If you don't, you're going to be destroyed. And again, do you think it was that father and son element? Do you think it was that? Why do you think he destroyed the Emperor?
That's a good question. I think Luke, obviously, he's sensed it, because that dialogue at the beginning when he's giving himself in, he says, "Oh, I feel the good in you," and stuff like that, and it's too late for me, son. That scene where he's on the platform, he's just come off the AT-AT, and I
My point
do
is,
you
Stu, is that we watched the
do you ever
prequels and
feel do
he's
you
like
ever
the
feel?
senator was his
Oh,
dad, wasn't it? From his like being a kid, that Palpatine looked at. So basically, that was his dad as well. By the time we
yeah,
got to this in Return of the Jedi, he's been his right side boy since he was that big.
yeah, yeah. Well, he's manipulated him all the way through, isn't he? All the way through episodes 1, 2, and 3, and stuff like that. But do you think that Vader had always fully turned, or do you think there must have been, because there was an element of good in him still, that little emotion of good in him, which and his love for his son, because he never knew his son. He didn't even know he had a son, did he? He thought that they all died.
No, and that's the thing, was it finding out he had a son, then finding out he had a daughter, then finding out what these two were actually fighting for. And it was a love
Yeah,
of keeping the Skywalkers basically together. You know,
yeah,
this guy's coming, like you said, manipulated. But I always found it confusing going back to the sequels, because I was like, well, Anakin as Darth Vader would have found that a lot harder than what we knew at the time, because of him following him since he was 5 and training him up, manipulating him to the dark side. But then you go into the Dark Horse comics and you go into all that, and there was a lot of adventures between Darth Vader and the Emperor. So when it comes to Return of the Jedi, and he flippantly just grabs him and just destroys him, throws him down the shaft, I'm like, there's more to that. Do you know what I mean? I wonder if Darth Vader just turned back at that split second, and he always had a bit of light in him. Because, you know, a
yeah,
lot of them said it to him, didn't they? Obi-Wan used to say it all the time, you're not who you think you are. And Luke always
yeah,
said it to him, I sense good in you. Yeah.
yeah,
And with the Jedi of that time, when you knew that when they spoke like that, obviously they could sense something. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah. And maybe it was the fact that, like, Palpatine's got Luke where he wants him. And he literally knows that he's going to destroy him, because he would have done, if Vader hadn't stepped in, Luke was gone. So
yeah,
maybe the thought of, oh crikey, what it's just suddenly hit him, sort of thing, that, okay, no, I can't have this. This is my son. But those the thing is, with a film, you can never really sort of like understand the emotion or get the emotion of characters. I mean, you can see it in their faces and stuff like that, but you don't know really what they're thinking. And it's only when you read it in a book or something like that they go into detail. The writer goes into detail of how they're feeling and their emotions and stuff like that. I I've never read the Return of the Jedi book, and I'd be interested to know if what his emotions and feelings were and thoughts were at that time when he steps in and picks him up and launches him over the side. I
yeah, it'd
don't
be
know.
interesting, wouldn't it, to find out what
Yeah,
the actual thought process behind that was, because it just always baffled me from being a kid. Like, the whole plan was, if he doesn't turn, we destroy him. He's too dangerous. Any son of Anakin Skywalker, any offspring would be a massive threat.
yeah,
And that was always the plan, but the plan just instantly changed, didn't it?
yeah, yeah. Well,
Brilliant.
I mean, you go back to Star Wars in the Death Star trench. Vader can sense something with this pilot. He doesn't know who it is, but he can sense something, because he says the Force is strong with this one, so he knows.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to know what happened between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, but again, I guess that's all in like novels and stuff like that, isn't it? In comics and
And that's the thing. I think Star Wars back in our days was it belonged in the realms of Sir Lancelot and Merlin and Lord of the
yeah,
Rings and that
yeah,
sort of fable. To me,
yeah,
I mean, I was always a massive fan of the Round Table, and it always felt like that in outer space. Always
yeah,
felt like Lord of the Rings in outer space. Little
yeah.
gang element, gang of them, good against evil, and the evil's massive. Do you know what I mean? And
Mm.
the odds you have to come across. And not going back to the discussion of new Star Wars, because obviously we're talking about the positives, but it's that sort of thing that I just think's gone. There's always that positivity, cheering in Star Wars movies. Way, every 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
See, for me, when I say Star Wars it was never broken, it's a simple story. It's a basic story. It's a story of good versus evil. How complicated does that need to be?
Well,
Do you know what I mean?
40
I don't
years, we're
think it
still
needs to
talking
be.
of the moral ground of Star Wars. We still talk about it. We still use it
Yeah,
against things, in
yeah,
quotes and in things that you have any advice. And sometimes you always turn to Star Wars and stuff because what you're saying, it was right. It was a good, moral, evil versus good storyline. You know what
yeah,
I mean? You drew the line with it, and so much could be brought out of that pot. So again, it's He-Man cartoons were the same. Always a nice message. GI Joe, always a nice message. Do you know what
yeah,
I mean? A message that spoke to kids. Didn't treat them like an idiot. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? But left you with a. And the same for Star Wars in that sense of these thoughts, these way of doing, this way of living, put you down the path of the dark side. But then all of a sudden now it's like, no, actually the Sith aren't as bad as what we thought, even though we don't call them Sith, and the Jedi are a bit dodgy. And you're like, no, they're not. The
no,
Knights
I
of the
know.
Round
It's
Table. Do you know what I
I've
mean?
always seen the Jedi as the peacekeepers of the galaxy. They're the
Mhm.
ones that are selfless. They never, they never, it's more defense than attack sort of thing. They only use force if absolutely necessary. And whereas the Sith, I mean, they're it's all about vengeance. It's all about hate. It's all about fear. It's all about these emotions that are negative. Excuse me, that make you more powerful. And I think that's kind of like what you know and it's always like deception and manipulation and dictatorship and all that sort of stuff. That is what you look for. That's what you see when you hear the word Sith and stuff like that. When you see people like the Emperor and Vader and Darth Maul and all the other Siths that have been in Star Wars. So why they felt the need to sort of like, well, hang on, let's look at it from a Sith. Yeah, we could have looked at it from a Sith point of view, but we did. We saw that in the Revenge of the Sith when Obi-Wan says, Anakin, the Sith are evil, and then he turns around and says, but the Jedi are evil from my point of view. So we already see it from a Sith point of view that we don't need to go too much deeper than that and try and make out it's okay about what the Sith are doing. And that's one of the things that happened in the Acolyte, where the sister prevented the twin going off to become a Jedi. She didn't want her to do that, so she stopped her. But then later on, she said, "Oh, she sees her sister kill her master, and then after that, she goes, "Oh, I'm not gonna, go and be what you're meant to be. I'm not gonna stop you." What kind of messaging is that? Because that's like me, my son saying he wants to be a policeman, and I say, "No, no, no, you're not going to become a policeman." Then a few years later, see him mug an old lady, beat her up, and then go, "Oh, be what you're meant to be. I'm not going to stop you," which is a thug and a crook. And do you know what I mean? It's what kind of
Yeah,
messaging is that?
I find that a bit crazy myself because in Star Wars Fable, Stu, we know that if a child is one with the Force and took young enough, they can develop that, become one of the greatest Jedi Knights in the galaxy. So parents and people out was always accepting of that. What great life this kid's going to have through the strength of the Force.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
never like a kidnapping. It was never like these were child snatchers that just came along and took
yeah,
them away. I know
yeah.
that he was playing on in the past with Anakin, and Anakin never got over him losing his mum, but he never once said, "But I regretted becoming a Jedi." It was only
No, he
towards the
didn't.
end through manipulation because that's all he ever wanted from being a kid: be on starships, save the galaxy, become a Jedi Knight.
Yeah, yeah.
In that sense, we always got the nod kidnapper. So I never understood why this new Star Wars plays, like you said, that narrative. Why? Do you know what I mean? And
I don't get it. I mean, they set the tone
no,
perfectly in episode one. I mean, again, I know episode one, at the time wasn't very well received, but you're absolutely spot on. You know, Qui-Gon recognized that there was something special about this kid, and what have you. And so did the mum. So did his mum. And she said, "Oh, he's meant to help people. He's meant to do this." So she knew. So she kind of, you know, he went with his mum's blessing sort of thing. And like you say, it was only the fact that Anakin, he wanted to become a Jedi, but then leaving his mum behind, that kind of like, he never let that go, did he? He couldn't
no,
detach from that. He always had his mum with him, and that was those feelings that kind of, I guess, we
But
was
like
undoing at the
you
end.
just said then about the acolytes, Stu, about the two sisters and that what happened to one of them.
Yeah,
Don't do that. And she went on and did that. Same for Anakin. He went on to do that. He went on to murder millions of people, blow up worlds, become really strong with the dark side to a point of he's with the Emperor, right hand man. So you know, I don't understand how they took these old stories in a way and just manipulate them and twist them and make them like with because they're not clever. Do you know what I mean, Stu? It's not
yeah,
like when you watch things like The Matrix, or you watch things like Back to the Future, or you watch these movies that do a certain tie-in, they're clever. But when you try and be too smart with something to
yeah.
basically push a message, they're not clever. You know, you
No,
can watch any Star Wars film today because it's timeless. There's nothing to do with the politics, nothing to do with what's going on at the time. And you know, these generations have their own problems like these ones do. But I think these Star Wars you'll look at and you'll remember the time. You know what I mean? Because it'll be like,
yeah,
oh, that's when we was all bothered about that, and that's when we was all bothered
yeah,
about that. And I
yeah,
don't think that
absolutely.
belongs in fantasy. I just don't.
No, well, I mean, you look at the time when you look when Star Wars was released, the original Star Wars back in '77. I mean, America was in, globally, it wasn't a great place. There was a issues in the States. There was trouble with the presidents and stuff like that, and then you had the Vietnam War, and all the movies that were at the time were like disaster movies. Earthquake, the Poseidon Adventure, Tower Inferno, those kind of disaster movies, and who wants to go to this? Who wants to keep going to the theater time and time again to watch a disaster movie? So when
Yeah,
Star Wars came along, and it just surprisingly become this massive box office hit, it changed everything. It changes people's perception. It inspires the generation of children and stuff like that. It changes the way movies are made, and all for the better. And that's been with us for the last 40 odd years. I mean, you look at the movies that have happened now because of how Star Wars was filmed and how they
yeah,
built their own computers, their own cameras and stuff like that. It was incredible how they did that movie. And I think that gets overlooked quite a bit, I think. And I mean, have you seen The Empire of Dreams, that documentary about
yeah,
how they made Star Wars? It's incredible how that film ever got
yeah.
off and got out in the first place. They were behind budget. They were, it was close to being shut down. But
But they
but
still
yeah,
managed
I
to
mean,
pull it together. True artists. Yeah, they
yeah,
can mess about and do this and slacken it and not have the money. But in the end, what was created was just, again, a phenomenon.
yeah,
And it's like, that's what I mean. I just wish, I mean, none of us, my twin brother said this, and I agree with him 100%. None of us wake up and go, today's the day, I'm going to hate Star Wars. Today's the day. That's it. Today,
yeah,
I'm not going to enjoy it anymore. And I hope everything's crap. I pray to God for a brilliant new Star Wars. It's one that's going to be as good as Return of the Jedi. I don't turn my back on this franchise because, you know, a segment of it over a small amount of years, the amount of years it's been here, I don't agree with. Do you know what I mean? It's been 90
yeah,
years of Batman comics. Not every one of them's been brilliant. There's
yeah,
been Batman films. Not every one of them's been brilliant. One of them
yeah.
was even rated the worst film of all time.
Wow.
But if you turn your back on things like that, you don't get the Nolan trilogy. And you don't get Patterson's Batman. So I'm hoping that there
Yeah,
is light at the end of the tunnel. But you know, I agree what you said. When you've got that now today, but I still always have Return of the Jedi, and I've always got
yeah,
Empire Strikes Back. And no
yeah,
matter how much all these Star Wars today gets on my wig, I can put them on at any time and be
yeah.
escorted straight back to being 9 years
They are
of age
timeless,
again.
aren't they? They are timeless, and they've
Timeless.
aged so well. I mean, some people say, "Oh, well, the special effects aren't all that." Aren't all that. These special effects, the way they did it, they make those ships look real. You think that they have a fleet of Star Destroyers coming after you. You think that you're flying through that asteroid belt in the Millennium Falcon. You
Yeah.
can feel. Do you know what I mean? There's tension within those. When those scenes. I mean, the Death Star trench. I mean, no one had ever seen anything like that before. That was
No.
just absolutely insane. I mean, wow, the speed they're going, and then the speeder bikes. How cool was that? And the way they filmed that was they just did it in slow mo, then sped it up, or they're just
And
walking
that's
around
the
with those
thing.
cameras, weren't they? And they sped it up. It's
And that's it. I don't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but speeder bikes and the biker scout was not in any film but Return of the Jedi, was it? It wasn't in
no,
Star Wars,
no,
and it
it
wasn't
was in
in
Return of the
Empire
Jedi. It was
Strikes
in
Back.
Return of the
And I
Jedi.
don't
Yeah,
know if they put them in previous or special editions or
no,
whatever, but I just always remember that scene when all four of them, two biker scouts, Leah and Luke, get on them bikes. And honestly, my head was into next week. And then the advert came on. And if you remember the advert, it was in a kitchen, and it was kitchen table legs used as the trees of
Yes.
Endor, and they're
Yeah, yeah,
flying
yeah,
around. And
yeah,
that advert has been brained. Do you know what I mean? I never forgot it. And
yeah.
do you know what I mean? It's just
Insane,
Return of the Jedi
insane.
for me, Stu. It's just if I think Star Wars, it's the first one that flicks in my head. Do you know what I mean? It just always
Yeah,
is.
yeah. So with Star Wars in general, what was it about Star Wars that really stands out for you?
That's just, you know what? It's funny, isn't it? It's funny how for me, I don't think there's ever been a franchise where everything is right. Your characters, your costumes, your weapons, your ships, everything just looked like it was from this world. And it
Yeah,
didn't matter what we turned around to, a gun, a turret, anything just looked like it belonged into this world. And out of all the films I've seen, like Flash Gordon was set in its own world, and all these other ones, nothing felt like it did with Star Wars. Like you felt like this was a place called Tatooine, and you
yeah,
felt like this was a place called Hoth. I think the element side of Star Wars, he got so right that it felt believable. Do you know what I mean? Like proper
yeah,
believable.
yeah.
I think that's what it was. Seeing lightsabers and the guns that were just like, it sounded like a rifle, but there were laser bolts. It sounded
Yeah,
like a Western gun, but this mad laser shoots out of it.
it's
There was a
it's
lot of
it's
things
mad,
like
isn't it? I
that.
mean, you
Mm.
know, going back to the sets and like like your Tatooines, your Hoth, and your Endors. I mean, look, you're in Tunisia. It's an Earth location, but when you look at it, you wouldn't think that it was Tunisia. You'd think it was Tatooine because of the sounds, because of the set design, because of the music that they're playing. It sounds alien. The same with Hoth, the kind of eerie kind of music that you get with it when you're around the Wampus Cave and stuff like that. You know it's filmed in Norway, but when you watch it, you think, "Good God, this is like an actual ice planet," and it's like you've never seen anything like it before. You know,
Yeah.
Endor, the redwood forest of California. You wouldn't have thought it. You wouldn't have thought it. The
No.
way again the speeder bike sounds and everything like that, it just seemed alien and off-world, and that's testament to that production crew for making those three Earth places seem so alien and so believable.
And I think it's because they were so recognizable as well, as in
Yeah,
sand, as in ice, as in the
yeah,
trees and the green. We sort of took that on as well.
yeah,
It's so bizarre how they did it. It's like you have seen in Star Wars now over the past 40 years, countless of times Star Wars characters walk into an alien bar and walk out, but you've never seen it as good as that first one. It's never felt as realistic as
yeah,
the first Star Wars, as that cantina scene. That it
yeah,
felt like this is a bar in Star Wars and it's dodgy as hell. You don't want to come in here. And the
yeah,
amount of times I've seen that scene try to be replicated throughout the years of Star Wars, even to the new Outlaws game, and yet it's never felt like that. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe it's
When
because it was the first time. I don't know.
when you say things like that, do you think the original trilogy was like capturing lightning in a bottle and that's it? It was a one-off thing and it would never ever happen
Yeah.
again. Yeah,
Why? Because I'm a believer that there'll never be another Superman than Christopher Reeve. Do you know what I mean? There'll never be
yeah,
another Batmobile by that 1966 Batmobile. This is my opinion. I
yeah,
think over the years, you fall so in love with your franchises that you've loved since being a little boy that you do become protective over them. You
yeah,
do. It's like, when they were remaking Solo, there was more people like, what are you doing? How can you replace Han Solo? What's your thinking there?
yeah,
Not brilliant. Han Solo film today, it was so, I think maybe that's where all this toxicity comes from, Stu, that we're so protected over something that we've loved since being little boys. First Star Wars film came out, I was only 2. I wouldn't have seen
yeah,
Star Wars up into the cinema, but you certainly know about the people that did, and about
yeah,
the uproar and tell you, and about all being in queues, and this film had come out, like you said, like nothing else that's ever been seen.
yeah,
And then you wish to God you were there, but I was there for Return of the Jedi. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
in a way, we've got it our way. And maybe we're a bit snobbish. Maybe we're that generation that gives it, well, we've got the first 3, the best 3. So, like, I
Well, yeah,
don't
but
know.
I agree with that. I mean, look, I've said to loads of people, I feel really lucky that I grew up in a time where when Star Wars was new and when it was the big thing, and it was the big thing. It was the biggest movies ever at that time. I mean, you couldn't. Every Christmas, Star Wars would be on, and then you had the toys as well. I mean, after Jedi, I bet you went out and got a speeder bike.
Oh, definitely. Main toy. Loved it.
Yeah,
Absolutely loved it. And
yeah.
you loved the way you could press the back and it all exploded like the speeder bikes did. The
And,
only
and
thing I hated, and this is why I've got a bit of a thing about vintage GI Joe, me, Stu, because I remember like I never collected GI Joe as a kid, never interested. But
yeah,
GI Joe could move, arms could move, legs, knees could bend.
yeah.
And I used to hate the way that my biker scout sat on my speeder bike with its
Yeah, with
legs
his legs.
forward.
Yeah, yeah,
It annoyed. I used to think, why don't you make a GI Joe on, and then he could put him on my bike properly? And they never did they? Until like later years down the line. Obviously, they did.
just bear
But
with
God,
me.
that wound me up, and it made me hate GI Joe.
I mean, like that.
Yeah, that's it. It was so annoying. That was to me as a kid. Do you know what I mean? That annoyed the hell out of me. But again, you're 9. You're not much to worry about at 9, have you?
No, but I mean, uh, I still think as nostalgic feel to it goes, I think it's just a great vehicle, and it is such a cool looking figure. And I'm with you. I was like, GI Joe. Look at this articulation. I mean, that was the in thing then. The O-rings, the swivel arms, and the movable legs and the bending knees and stuff like that. It would have been so cool if they would have made Star Wars figures like that.
Yeah, I'd
Back
have
in that
loved it.
day.
And I just think as well, out of our Star Wars, Stu, things happen naturally. It's like
Yeah,
today's Star Wars, it seemed to push a certain character on you on purpose. Like, but in our time, Boba Fett was just born out of being just super cool on screen. Do you
yeah,
know? And a lot of people
yeah,
talk about the Empire Boba Fett, but it was me. It's just that nod in Return of the Jedi. That's all he
yeah,
had to do. And all us lot were going, oh my God, there he is, Space Cowboy. Oh my God. And all he did was nod his head, like, give him a nod. And then you
yeah,
felt like saying, don't mess with him. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah, yeah,
Bosk is there
yeah.
with Chewbacca. Little nod between the pair of them, but you're like, don't mess with Boba Fett. He will have your ass. Do you know what I mean? And
He didn't
it's
say
just the
anything,
way he
but
was
he was
born out
menacing,
of
wasn't
it.
he? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just loved it. I just thought it was so cool. And I mean, as a kid, you were bitterly disappointed that he met his end the way he did. You just think, oh, God, he's such a cool character, and But I loved it. I mean, Jabba the Hutt. I thought the way they did Jabba the Hutt was absolutely fantastic. I mean, he grossed Carrie Fisher out in some of those scenes, especially when the goo and
Yeah.
the gunk around his mouth and stuff like that.
Brilliant though.
But
Brilliant.
and listen, I'm going to mention this because I know how hot was Carrie Fisher in that
Oh,
outfit.
beautiful. Now you see, for me, I'll tell you something. It's only getting older I appreciate you, Carrie Fisher, because as a kid, it was always Wonder Woman for me. It was always Linda Carter. That's
Oh,
who it was.
okay, yeah,
It was
yeah,
Linda
yeah.
Carter and Victoria Principal. They were the two
Oh
as a kid
wow,
that I was like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
love you too. You're beautiful. But Carrie
yeah,
Fisher sort of grew on me as I got a bit older. Do you know what I mean? And but she
yeah,
was a beauty, and Return of the Jedi, she was beautiful in that film. There's no
yeah.
doubt about it. She was
I mean,
stunning
I mean,
looking.
I mean, she was stunning. I loved her in that outfit in Bespin, the red
Yeah,
gowns and stuff like that. I just thought, I mean, what an absolute stunning lady she was. And but I just think that as films go with Star Wars, the original trilogy, perfectly cast,
oh,
perfectly
when you
cast.
saw that scene, is it from Empire Dreams Against You, where there's that
Yeah,
reel which shows all the actresses that went for the role, and
yeah,
quite a few of them are being filmed, and then it shows Carrie Fisher, and instantly you just
yeah,
go, there was no other. There was no other.
yeah,
No other could have played that role.
yeah. Because you had Kurt Russell go for Han Solo.
Yeah,
You had a few other people go for Luke Skywalker, and it's really weird. I can't imagine a Star Wars now with someone else as Han Solo and someone else as Luke Skywalker or someone else as Princess Leia. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
I
I
can't
do.
imagine it. It was so perfectly cast. I mean, even down to the fringe characters like R2D2, C3PO, Chewbacca, Peter Cushing as Moff Tarkin. I mean, crikey, Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, it was a great cast, and they just absolutely nailed it in every
It was,
sense.
but you had that magic of having that warmth about them, Stu.
Yeah,
We're watching these as children, and when they go on that Death Star and the tractor beams pulled them in, in a way, you know that they are outnumbered massively. They're on the
Yeah,
Death Star. They're in the lion's mouth. Yet just because they've got this old wizard, it's a little
yeah,
bit wise and a little bit. As a kid, I'm like, they're all right. Obi-Wan's with them. They're all right. There's no way anyone's going to get past Obi-Wan. And you get them feelings. You fall in love with these characters massively.
oh yeah,
We
yeah, you do.
all loved and wanted to be Han Solo, but the truth is, we're all Luke Skywalker. And
Yeah,
and I'll just love that way. There was no shame in that. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, yeah,
Carrie Fisher was always that girl that we all had knocking around with us at school. There was always that one, two or three girls that were just in the gang and they did things that you lot did, and they're a bit
yeah.
tomboyish and a little bit like. So we
There was
related
character
to that.
development, wasn't there? There was character
Yeah,
development. I mean, you know, you had Star Wars where you're just getting to know them, and even though you've been together a short while, they made a team. That was the team, and they were absolutely awesome. And then, like, you know, Star Wars is a huge success. Then it goes on to Empire Strikes Back, and you think, oh wow, okay, what's going to happen here? And it's a darker, broodier story. They're not things aren't going their own way. You know, Luke has his hand chopped off. He learns that, you know, Vader's his dad. Han Solo gets frozen. I mean, at the end of Empire Strikes Back, when Solo goes off, I mean, did you think that was it? Do you think he was going to die, or did you think they were going to rescue him?
I never got that deep into Han Solo for Star Wars like that. I never any. Oh, I'm sorry. I never got any talk that he was going to be dead or they were going to kill him off or anything. I never got that as a kid. It's something that never rung a bell with me. Over the years,
Yeah,
and you find out with interviews, Harrison Ford saying, oh, do you know, I really wanted him to kill him off. He didn't have anybody and
mm,
it would have added emotion. I'm glad they didn't. Do you know what I mean? I'm
yeah,
glad that I got them first three with them three. I
yeah,
never understood in the first three films that Disney did. Your idea was to kill off the main three in every one. All that said to me was, in that signed contract, their copyright, their trademarks for Leia, Han, and Luke must have been through the roof. And Disney, who have to continue to pay a percentage to Lucasfilm, to George Lucas, for the use of these characters, probably thought, kill them three off. We don't have to give him half as much. Because I just never understood the logic of you've got Star Wars, Han, Luke, and Leia.
yeah,
And
yeah.
your idea is to kill them off in every film for the first three. That's your big idea.
They never even shared screen time together. The three of them
No,
never ever shared, and that is an absolute. That was like, what are you doing? You've got the ideal opportunity for them, all of them, to meet up. You know, maybe for one last time. Who knows? But they didn't even do that. And what irked me the most was the fact that when Han Solo died, I was gutted. I was absolutely gutted. I was like, oh, I just felt sick. And so they come back, and Chewie and Ray, they land. Leia walks straight past Chewie and gives Ray a hug. She's never ever met her before, and yet she's
no,
hugging
it's
her.
insulting.
It is, and that's
Because you've
that
loved Chewbacca. You love him. You've loved him since you was a little boy. You
yeah,
love Chewbacca. No matter how you might not think it, you might not subconsciously say it, you know, but you love
yeah,
Chewbacca and
yeah,
C3PO and R2D2. R2D2 spent three films under a blanket. C3PO
yeah,
was a non-existent. I've got a red arm. No, I haven't. It was just like, and yet these two in the first Star Wars films got the gang out of so many scrapes. If it wasn't
yeah,
for these two, they'd have,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's just
yeah,
like the gang element's gone, the love element's all like, let's all help each other. It started to be all about me. I'm Ray, I can do everything. Whereas the original Star Wars is, let's help each other. If we don't help each other, we're not getting out of this. And there was that
yeah,
nice way, that gang friendly element that I just always loved of the original Star Wars. It's a
yeah.
shame, isn't
It is. It
it?
was definitely a missed opportunity for that, for sure. How important is story to you within the Star Wars universe?
Do you know what, Stu? Not massively, funny enough. I think the
Okay.
Skywalker saga has done its run. I think that maybe changing Star Wars to completely different, something new, to try something different. Oh, never mind the Skywalkers, go to another end of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Then you can't have any complaints. The only complaints you have, whether you like it or you don't like it, you can't have any complaints. You've not ruined anything. You know, I
Yeah.
think Star Wars is playing too much on the nostalgic and not enough on formatting characters. Who are we going to love in the next 20 years from this franchise?
I
Who
mean,
from this franchise in 40 years we're going to love like we do Chewbacca?
No, I don't think there will be. And and it is a shame to say that. I mean, you've got the prequel trilogy that, you had Anakin, you had Obi-Wan, you had Padme. So I guess they were kind of like that, the sequels versions of Han, Luke, and Leia. It was those kind of three, and they went through adventures together. But like you said, you touched on it before, the animated series of Clone Wars really opened up that sequel trilogy for sure. It
Yeah.
made me understand it a hell of a lot more. And some of the stories in that, animated, and it was they were brilliant. I couldn't wait for the next episode to come along, or on a weekly, 7 seasons that went on for. That was just insane.
And when you think of the new Star Wars, and they create a whole new stormtrooper, whole new
Yeah,
look, that duck face mask,
yeah,
why have the clone stormtroopers become the second to the original stormtrooper? Why is it that Hasbro are only selling figures still of the clone army? You don't see any of these new ones all painted up or all done, and this is the 20th version of this new duck face stormtrooper that's this color.
yeah,
No, but the clones, massively, Stu. Every
yeah,
Hasbro pulse I see, there's always a clone thrown in because they're
yeah,
sellable. People like them. So I don't accept that new stuff. People say, "Sure, you've got old, the magic's gone. You're not a kid anymore." That's crap. That is utter crap. And the reason why I know that's crap, Stu, is because when you go on here and you watch the Knights of the Old Republic trailers and you watch these fan-made films and you watch Visions and you watch all these little cut-offs, how come all that's right? How can we love all that stuff? It seems to be
yeah,
Star Wars perfect. And yet when you get to the actual holders now of Star Wars, no, there's no soul. I
mm,
don't, and I think that's why the first three, especially Return of the Jedi, will always be massive because it's that soul. The soul's there. The
yeah,
soul's there. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean?
I mean, you mentioned it about moving away from the Skywalker saga. Some would say that they tried to do that with the Acolyte, and people haven't accepted it because it's not part of the Skywalker saga. Now, look, the reason why a lot of people haven't accepted it is, and again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, is because it was poorly written, it was poorly acted, the story was absolute dire and all over the place, and 180 million went into that series, and it was just absolute rubbish. It had nothing to do with the fact that it wasn't anything to do with the Skywalker saga. That series had so much potential. It could have been and should have been incredible, especially set in that time period where the Jedi are at the peak of their powers. And do you know what I mean? That could have been absolutely incredible. But because they get the wrong people in, people who don't understand Star Wars. I mean, most of those writers, Leslie Headland's admitted herself, she brought them in because they didn't know anything about Star Wars. What is the point of that?
That's the
I
dumbest
don't
thing I've
get
ever
it.
heard.
It's just little things like that, and you think they've set themselves up for a fall. It's like they've purposely. But why? Like I said, Star Wars isn't broken. Look, George Lucas, and I look, as much as he wasn't a great director, he was a storyteller. He had a vision. He got what he wanted, and that vision was perfect, in my opinion, with the original trilogy. You had the foundations to build something incredible when he sold it off. Everything was in place, the lore, the canon, and I don't know how they could have got it so wrong in certain aspects, but then in some aspects they get it right. And like you said, for every time they get something right, they go and balls it up a few weeks later or a few months later with something else, which is just totally, ridiculous. I don't get it.
Stu, if you've bought Star Wars, you've bought it and you've just
Yeah,
paid billions for it.
yeah,
But I'm the creator, and you know how much of a success this is, and you're talking to the creator. And I turn around to you and go, "Oh, hang on a minute, pal. There's the last three. That goes up to 9. Your idea is to not accept that. Your idea is to go, thanks, George, but no thanks. We're doing our own thing." That
yeah,
is the one thing, the biggest major insult for me in Disney
yeah,
buying it was that.
yeah,
Like, you give you the screenplays for the last 3 you don't want to know. That to me was like, you're gonna, you know what I mean? But again, you
yeah.
see, I don't believe in modernizing. I've said it before, you don't go into the gallery and put graffiti art on the Mona Lisa to modernize it today, do you? Do you know
No,
what I mean? I don't get that sort of stuff. When things work, they work for a reason because the magic. Maybe you hit the nail on the head. What you said, it was that lightning. It was them 3. that's basically what you're going to get. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah. Yeah.
we've seen so many copies, and we've seen so many nods to, and so many, hey, look, see. I don't like that either. Do you know what I mean? I find it like, after a while, it gets a bit pretentious. Like, got another Death Star scene, and another
Yeah.
TIE fighter scene, and it starts to get boring. And what you're watching, like you said, there's no development, no forwardity, no character
No, I
development,
know.
no
And
like storyline.
it does make you wonder how they can. I don't. It's
And
baffling. It's
I've always
baffling.
waited the first three as well. That the Force felt special to me, my Star Wars. There's another
Yeah.
thing I loved about the
Yeah.
original. Like it
Yeah.
felt like if you had this power, you got to be careful how you wield it. It's not, you know what I mean? Sometimes it can overwhelm you. Sometimes it can turn you crazy. Sometimes all you can do is just move a pebble. Others can bring starships down. And I
Yeah.
like that special way about the Force. It was mysterious. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm with you. The way they wrote the Jedi and how they were supposed to be, and um, their whole being and stuff like that. They sort of like flipped that right round in the Acolyte, and I didn't agree with that. I didn't agree with that at all. Um, how important do you think the older generation of Star Wars fans are to the Star Wars franchise? The likes of me and you, and our generation of people.
see, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. You see, our generation, even though we say it and we get involved and we keep your ears to the ground, we're not this new generation. We're not. And new generations want new things. Obviously, they want things to move on, better tech, better CGI, better camera work, which is proven what we've got. You
Yeah,
know, you'd have killed for an 8K telly as a kid, like I would have done. Do you know what I mean? We were watching
yeah,
these on
yeah,
big wooden boxes. So I think it's different for that. But I do believe that we are important in the idea of keeping Star Wars Star Wars. This isn't
yeah,
Star Wars today. It's not recognizable. I've said it before. Disney have bought Marvel and they've bought Star Wars, two massive franchises. Today, you can take any character from any of them franchises and drop them into each other's movies, and they seem flawless. They're dropping flawless. Any character from Marvel you could put into a Star Wars film, and Rey could very easily be in an Avengers film. And
yeah,
that's my whole point. You've not separated these franchises through this stupid agenda you're pushing, through this constant garbage message that no
yeah,
one's interested in. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Star Wars
I
doesn't feel standalone anymore, does it? It doesn't feel like it's special. It doesn't feel like that's Star
no.
Wars and that's the big guy, and all you lot
Well,
sit to one side when these make a film. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, people have said it before, and people have said it on this series. Star Wars is escapism. It's meant to be set in a galaxy far, far away. Like, yeah, they have their issues, but don't bring like earthly issues into these stories. I mean, you know, I'll get to my next points in a minute, but you've got to separate, you know, the real life issues from your fantasy. Otherwise, what's the point of going to watch a movie if you're just going to go and sit there? You might as well watch the news, because you just do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
dude.
absolutely insane. I mean, so moving on with those points I was going to make, how important are strong female characters within Star Wars?
Massively. But again, I've always believed in strong female characters, and we're from a generation that we had hundreds of them. They
Yeah,
bang the drum today about strong female characters, but they ain't our strong female characters. I don't see a Red Sonja. I don't see a Princess Leia. I don't see a Ripley. All I
yeah,
see is some girl who thinks she's absolutely it. Everything should bend down for her, and everything works out right. We were not brought up on that with characters, with strong female characters. We just weren't. Every strong female character that we watched was a strong female character back in
yeah,
the 70s and back in the 80s. You know, remember you go back to Alien, there's only her left. That's all there
yeah,
is left.
yeah,
Whole crew of hard soldiers, there's only her left. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? You go to Princess Leia, and if it wasn't for her cunning on that Death Star, half of them would have been buggered. We
Yeah,
had
I
these
know.
women.
Yeah,
I don't understand today how it's the drums beating about it. I don't see it. I don't. I just see some spoiled brat. I think, well,
yeah,
work for your living. Make us think that you're a strong female character. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? I'm all
Are
for
you,
listening to you. That's why Hilda Ogden's my avatar. Strong female character. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
that's why I
yeah,
put that up. Like thinking this little old woman from Manchester, all she had to put up with her Stan over the years, with his drinking and his smoking and his gambling. And she cleaned a little pub and she worked hard for her kids. That's why I put that woman up there. Speaks for the Northwest. Strong
Wow.
female character. Do you know what I
Wow.
mean?
It,
I just
they
don't
they
see it.
tend they tend to forget characters like Leia, don't they? And you know, and I mean, even to an extent, Padme. I mean, she was a queen at the age of 14. She was a senator in the second movie. They quietened her down a little bit in the third one because she was pregnant. But I mean, even now, you've got characters like Bo-Katan. You've got oh, what's her name? Fennec Shand. You know, strong female characters. Cara Dune. What a great strong female character she was. Absolutely
Yeah,
brilliant. I liked
yeah.
her, and they didn't, so they got rid of her. It's it's yeah,
Well, you know,
it's
that was a silly move because my Claire's interested in Star Wars. She watches it when it's on, like it's on. She'll be doing a thing. But
yeah,
she did watch her, and she did really like Cara Dune. And Claire's like that. And when I told her that she's, there was a Twitter thing and she's been fired, Claire's like, well, she was the best thing in this show. So this is another thing that makes me laugh. They've got this character. They've got a character that my Claire will go, I'm watching her every week. She's
yeah,
quality.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
but then no, don't too bigger than the show. Not dislikable enough. Let's get rid of her.
So
So yeah, she was
yeah,
supposed to be having a show, wasn't she? Is that all gone now? Wasn't she not supposed to be in
that
a
was
show
supposed
called
to
Commander
be
or something? Or
that was supposed to be Rangers of the Republic or something like that, or Republic Rangers. It was something to do with like her being a ranger and stuff like that. So yeah, that was in the pipeline. But then when they got rid of her, that sort of all went out the window. So that got put on hold, and then probably just binned it and stuff like that. And from what I'm hearing, there's quite a few projects that have now been put on hold because of everything that's gone on surrounding the Acolyte. You know, I think
the
that Ray
Acolyte for
movie
me
is now on hold.
was not, in my opinion, Stu. I think I heard that much stupid backlash on the YouTube about Episode 3 changing Star Wars and all this. It wasn't as bad as what I actually thought. And the only lesson it taught me from the Acolyte was don't listen to all this lot on YouTube. Make your own mind up like you've always done. Watch
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
then make your own mind up. My whole point about the Acolyte is like all Star Wars of today is what did you expect after Book of Boba Fett and after Obi-Wan and the stupidity of Ahsoka? What was you expecting? Because I
mm,
knew for a fact going into this, it's just going to be the same drivel as all the rest of it. And then they
mm,
made you dislike it 6 months. I live in Blackpool. It's the gay capital of Europe. I've
yeah,
never been homophobic in my life in 50 years. Have I ever upset anyone for being gay or for wearing a frock or for doing what you want to do? But
yeah,
this show all of a sudden likes to tell me I am offensive, that my
yeah,
charts weren't full of transsexuals and they weren't full of gay men in the 80s. When music was really good. And this is what
yeah,
makes me laugh that we've got to this age. And all of a sudden, my generation is being blamed for this and for race and for equality and for
yeah.
diversity. I'm like, were you lot not here in the 80s? Because I was, you know what I mean?
I know. It's and that's what I don't agree with. I mean, there is so much Star Wars. There really is, and you can pick and choose what you like. I don't have any issues with that. You're not going to like everything, like you said with Batman. You know, not every Batman's been great,
No,
but not every Star Wars has been great. But just because we don't like a certain aspect of Star Wars, I don't see why we're getting branded as bigots or homophobes or
no.
racists and stuff like that. It's just I've never heard anything like it in my life. I
I
really
mean, I know
have.
all the Disney's execs are watching. Obviously, they're watching you and me now. I know they're all watching
Yeah,
around
yeah,
at
yeah,
Disney.
yeah. Well, if you're
So I will
watching,
say to
do
them
something
all,
about it.
it's your stories. It ain't your characters. If
Yeah,
Ray was wrote totally different, we'd have loved her as much as Princess Leia. Look at
yeah,
Finn. We're from England, you, me, Stu. We're looking at Finn and all these posters, and me thinking, yeah, look at this. Black kid's going to be the new Jedi. Brilliant.
yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Every poster's got a lightsaber. Everywhere in
yeah,
England, everywhere we went, lightsaber on him. And
yeah,
then I watched it. And then even Han Solo says to him, you work in the toilets, don't you? And I'm like, am I listening to this? Am I actually listening to this? That this company is banging the drum about me being all this and that. They put him in Star Wars. They've no idea what to do with his character. You could have formed this kid to be the next Luke Skywalker. But oh
yeah,
no. Do you know what I mean? Blame me for your mistakes. It
yeah,
was you that said in that film, oh, you work in sanitation, don't you? And like, you're not even a proper. I was like, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. No one's saying it. Do you know what I mean?
It is mad, and I didn't even think about that until you said it. But you go on about Disney pushing an agenda, and we've got Finn with the lightsabers and stuff like that, and on the poster, an English black guy. You go to China, and they get rid of him from the poster, or they reduce him in. I mean,
Did you do
what?
that, Stu? Was that
No,
you? Did you phone up Disney and say, "Do me a favour, I'm such
actually,
this bigoted
yeah,
bloke. Can
yeah.
you take him off the poster for me?" No, you
It was
didn't.
it was my fault. I did phone him up and say, "Look, I'm not having this." So I do apologise. It is my fault. It's because I'm a white male. It's my fault. Yeah, brilliant.
It's so
Um,
stupid, isn't it?
it is. It's daft. It's daft. How important is it for Star Wars to be inclusive?
Massively. But again, I think it always has been. I
Yeah,
generally think it always has been. I think there's always been a character in them first three original Star Wars that we can all get behind. You can exclude all you want about people's race and colours. If I turn around to my brother Jamie, I said to him, "Who was your favourite in Star Wars, Jay? Who did you love?" Do you know what Jay would say to me? Chewbacca. Love Chewbacca. Because he was the
yeah,
strong one. Jay used to
yeah.
like all big strong characters like Hulk Hogan and Superman. So Chewbacca to him, he could pull your arms out and stuff. Jay was all for him. So he wouldn't even mention anybody else in Star Wars. Do you know what I mean? There is no
Yeah, yeah.
Lando because he's coloured, or Princess Leia because she's a woman, or Luke Skywalker because he's square jawed. None of that business. I think that the
It-
original Star Wars is massively exclusive. Do you know?
oh yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah. It's mad. I just again, I asking these questions because we as an older generation of fans, because we don't like certain aspects of Star Wars, it's because there's gay people in it. It's because we're bigots. It's because we're racists and stuff like that. It's not the point, and I don't know how many times we've got to put this across and say, write a decent story, and people will be interested because it's a story that will hook you into the film and the series in the first place. If you're going to be writing trash and you're getting people in it you don't understand Star Wars, who don't care about Star Wars, they like the money, they want the money, but they couldn't write for toffee. I heard someone say the other week, or the other day, that Rian Johnson, he's a great director. He's a great, he's done some great stuff. But he was absolutely shocking at Star Wars because they allowed him to go off and do something totally different, which is again, it's not an issue that he's gone totally different. But look what he done to Luke. Look what he done to Luke.
I just think he had a fantastic sales pitch. I just think his sales pitch to the Disney execs was just fantastic because he must have been like a magician where they all think this, but we're going to do that. And they all
Yeah.
think we're going to do this, but we're actually going to do that. And then
Mm.
Disney execs must have thought, do you know what? Brilliant. Yeah, this sounds great. Talk about it, Stu. When you put that into a discussion, you can understand it. Everybody expects this for Luke, so I'm going to do this because you've not seen it, you've not pictured it, so you're only getting
Yeah.
your own visions, what's popping up. So obviously, because it was made, he went, I don't think they purposely went out to say this is the one that's going to destroy this franchise for us, not after paying billions of dollars. I don't agree there.
Mm.
But then I think was the visual, was the logo, was the thought and the nostalgia more important to Disney than Star Wars? Was it all the other part of it? You see, us, we collect figures, we collect vintage stuff, we've got vintage stuff, we've got things from being a kid, but it's them three films. That's your soul, that's your source. It's
Yeah.
like all these Batman films are great, fantastic, but my source is them comic books. That's the love of them, that's the original.
Yeah.
And I think they just didn't get that importance. I just don't think they got it.
No. No.
It's like what you said, if you're going to
You
employ
know.
people that know nothing about it, never watched
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
well, what do you expect's going to happen? It's like, and which I find dumb. It's like me employing a butcher to manage Liverpool Football Club. It's stupid.
Yeah. It is. It is, and I don't get it myself because you had George Lucas. He spent a long time writing that script out and that storyline out and that you know the original trilogy, and then he did the same because he had it in his head that he was going to do the original the prequels, but he never got round to it because of he wanted a break and stuff like that. Then that technology came along where he could CGI was invented and stuff like that, and so he made his you know beginning part of the story. And I think after that, I think it would have been nice to just left it. Just leave it at those 6 movies.
But like what my twin brother says as well, when you think of all the books like the Timothy Zahn and these people that
Yeah,
kept it going from Return of the Jedi,
yeah, yeah.
why was that scoffed at, Stu? I don't get it. We
No.
all had it in our heads. Han Solo and Princess Leia get married. They have 3 children. 2 of them are twins. One of them turns to the dark side. The other 2 try and save him and pull him back out. Now,
Yeah,
if that isn't that family Star Wars story for the new ones, I would never know. And yet, it's funny, Stu. We come on here, and you've probably had people do it every week. It's a discussion about what's great about Star Wars and what you love about it. But I think that the strength now over these years with Disney, it's upset you on a level that you can't help but talk about today's Star Wars as well, can you? You can't help it. It has
yeah,
to be thrown in.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and it's disappointing because, like I say, you've got elements of Disney films and Disney series that are good, and they're Rogue One, for example. I mean, that would fit straight in with the original trilogy. The big after the prequels, Rogue One, original trilogy, Clone Wars. Again, I mean that season 7, what they did with Clone Wars, Dave Filoni did with Clone Wars season 7, that was under Disney. That and,
Yeah,
and I thought that was, apart from the first couple of episodes, I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Again, an animated lightsaber duel with Darth Maul and Ahsoka.
yeah,
How cool was that? They used stop motion, not stop motion. What do you call it? Body motion. They had sensors on Darth Ray Park, and he was doing all those moves and stuff like that, and they put it to an animated character. They when they get it right, it needs the right people in charge. It needs someone like Dave Filoni and who's the other guy? Oh God, Jon Favreau. They get Star Wars.
Favreau gets Star Wars, but I think he's also shackled a lot. I think the
Even yeah,
shackles are on him. I think this agenda is a reason why it's getting pushed, and he gets shackled a lot with it. Hence, he puts Luke Skywalker in, then gets told he can't use Luke Skywalker anymore. So, in a sense, he does get it because when it was all going to pot, he made that Mandalorian episode, and he was the one
yeah,
that brought Luke Skywalker back. And to see today, Stu, 2023, the 1984 Luke Skywalker blew my mind. Blew my mind. Because don't
yeah,
forget, we're all nerds. We love CGI. We love graphics. We love things like this. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
when I first saw that, it was like, and it gave me a bit of hope, a little bit.
yeah.
And I'm
That
to the
end
point
scene, that end
convinced that
scene.
with this Mandalorian movie is going to have Han, Luke, and Leia in it. I'm convinced by it. I'm utterly convinced. What else could they do in a big spectacular of a movie? Yeah, they're in the same timeline. There's only one thing they can do: bring that Millennium Falcon back, bring them 3 back as CGI. I'm telling you now, they've got a hit on their hands massively because we love Star Wars. We love it. We don't hate it. It's like
No,
watching your girlfriend snog your best mate every time your back's turned. That's all it is. You still love her. Will you stop
yeah,
doing that? Eventually, she does. Eventually, she
yeah.
comes back and loves you, and that's what you want. You know what I mean? That's all you want.
No,
I want
absolutely,
speeder bikes
absolutely,
back. New Star Wars
absolutely.
gave me great. That scene with all the speeder bikes were in it, and this time all the white, all the speeder bikes were white, and they all come flying down the side of the mountain chasing
That
it.
was cool.
I
That
was
was
like,
pretty cool. Yeah.
nothing to
Well, that's
do with
what I
my
mean.
age. I'm
When
still
they
a big
when they get
kid.
it right, when they get it right, they get it right. They've done some incredible stuff. And after that episode of The Mandalorian, that season 2 finale, I was like, wow, I cannot wait for season 3. And then they advertised the Book of Boba Fett. That scene was the best scene in the whole series. That scene at
Yeah.
the end of I just what how could they get that so wrong?
And that's the thing. It's just, again, that is the most stupid one of all. Why not choose Star Wars people for Star Wars?
Yeah,
Why not? Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? I
yeah,
mean, we all talk about football. You have a football show. I'm certainly not giving Adam Berry a ring to be Liverpool manager. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah, yeah,
you want the knowledge there. You want someone that knows this, and there's
yeah,
so many that do, isn't there? That's
yeah.
another thing. You
It's
could
it's
put
it's
Star
mad.
Wars into hands of some directors, and it would be better than the original 3. You know it would. I think there's a fear of it. I don't know why. What do you reckon? It's like they're frightened of
I
making it
want
good.
to be. I want to go back to feeling like I did with a kid with Star Wars. That wow factor. You know, I think the last time I had a proper well, you know, it was a wow factor with Darth Maul and his double-bladed lightsaber. How cool was that? I love that. That was a wow moment. The scene with Luke at the end of Mandalorian season 2, a wow moment. Darth Vader
Yeah,
at the end of Rogue One, slicing through those rebel troopers, a wow moment. You do get them every now and again, but you want it all the time because that's what Star Wars is. Star Wars is about wow moments. It's about
yeah.
spectacular space battles. It's about a fantastic story. And do you know what I mean? It's about characters that you can fall in love with and just, you know, appreciate and stuff like that. And you care for these characters. You don't want to see them hurt. You don't want to see them get killed. And you're upset when they do. Do you know what I mean? I've felt nothing like that in a few of the series that we've watched recently of Star Wars.
And that's the love of
It's a
Return of the
shame.
Jedi for me, that you can look at a load of henchmen and 40 years, 50 years later, you can go, Klaatu, Nikto, Weequay. You know him. How many
Yeah,
more henchmen do you know? You name me any other film where you know all the henchmen.
yeah.
Not hardly
It,
any.
it's
You know what I mean?
crazy,
There'd
isn't
probably
it?
be James Bond. There's James Bond, a major villain, a henchman. You probably get that. But
Yeah,
outside of that, Star Wars is the only one where you know who Boba Fett is. What? Less than 6 minutes screen time in the 80s. But we all know who Boba Fett is. And
oh
we
yeah,
all know
yeah,
what his ship's called. And we all know
yeah,
what he's capable of. And it's just, that's the magic of it. It was like, you know, you talk about spectacular moments, but Return of the Jedi, for me, the whole film is a spectacular moment. All that
yeah,
Tatooine scene at the beginning is amazing. You'd
yeah,
never seen Tatooine on this gangster side before. Do you know what I mean? It was always a nice
yeah,
little farm, not like this. And then the
yeah,
next thing, it goes to Dagobah, and that's what you've been waiting 3 years for. And even then, when he says to Yoda, he's my dad, he's like, hang on a minute, I'm just going to have 5 minutes. And you're like, tell him,
yeah, yeah,
waited years. And then
yeah.
it goes to all that with the Emperor at the end. And again, it just how good triumphs over evil at the most darkest of times, where many a time we was like, Luke's turning. He's going to turn. There's no
Yeah,
way he's
yeah,
going to get out of this. And he
yeah.
does, Stu. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. You know, we said it's Star Wars is lightning in the bottle. The original trilogy is lightning in the bottle. So because, like you've said, every one of those films was a wow moment. It was like wow all the way through because Star Wars was wow because you'd never seen anything like it before. Empire because of the story, the character development, the wow, you know, that Walker, that Hoth battle, incredible. The bounty hunters, Boba Fett, wow. Vader revealing himself to Luke as his father, wow. You know, Han Solo
Yeah.
getting wow. Then Empire, Return of the Jedi, again, every scene is wow. That is lightning in a bottle, and we don't get enough of that, or you know, enough of
No.
that in Star Wars these days. We've come up to the end of the hour. I've got one more question for you. Overall, Si, what makes Star Wars great for you?
Do you know what? It's family. It's always been there, Stu. Memories gone by, films you've seen, adverts you've seen, toys you've seen that you've just totally forgotten about. But
Yeah,
for some reason, any sticker book, image, annual, poster, film, figures, you never forgot. Ever, ever, ever. You just, it's embedded. There was just
yeah,
something about these films when they come out that just changed everything. As a kid, I judged everything off Star Wars, everything. You'd watch Oscar montages and you'd always get excited when you saw the Star Wars clip in it. It
yeah,
was just above everything. And there were some great movies. We were talking the 80s here. Some
yeah, yeah,
fantastic,
yeah,
fantastic masterpieces made. And yet, for some reason, I always class Star Wars as well as the other two for the 80s because that was the times that I got round to seeing them. None of us
yeah,
really got a VHS play till we were about 9, 10. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
Return of the Jedi was out. I could go back to the other two. And I just think it's that. I just think the memories, especially Return of the Jedi for me, hold such a special place because, again, tragedy in my life at the time. You know, frightened to death, didn't know what was going to go on with my leg. I was told your
yeah.
leg might have to come off, all sorts of stuff.
Wow,
And
wow.
just that film just did loads to me. Do you know what I mean? It just did. I know people say it, and I know it's cliche, and I know everyone comes out with this sort of stuff, but sometimes it's true. Sometimes it
Yeah,
definitely, there is a reason that why you love these sorts of things. And I just think now it's just, you'll die with Star Wars. You'll die loving it. Doesn't matter
yeah,
what they come out with. They could make a film better than the other three, but you'd still love them other three more than anything in the world. And,
yeah,
it's just what's
yeah,
good about it. And like I said to you before, to finish it off, no matter how bad Star Wars has got today, no matter how much annoyed you get, or offended, or even upset you get with the way that you get treated off these people now, being told in the acolyte straight away, this isn't for you. Well, why is it not for me? It's Star Wars. What you're on about? It's not for me. I followed this
yeah.
for 40 years. It's not for you. And that straight away annoyed me. Like who says that to sell a property? Who says that?
Yeah, I
Do you
know.
think I'm going to
It's
bring out my
insane. Yeah.
Mangafandanga t-shirts in October and go, it's not for you though, Stu? Anyway, you know, you,
I'd be
you wouldn't,
gutted.
would you? It's so
No,
dumb.
you wouldn't. But that's that. Yeah.
But you've
And they
always got
say
them
Star
three.
Wars is for everybody. They say Star Wars is for everybody. Yes, it is. So don't pinpoint it and direct it at a minority group of people because it's for everybody. Everybody should enjoy it. Don't just pinpoint these people and say it's not for you. Here, have some of that. That's not how it works. It shouldn't work like that. Do you know what I mean? If it's
No,
for everybody,
no,
it's for everybody. I don't care if a character's gay. I don't care if a character's a different race. It doesn't bother me. All I care about, and again, I will say it, is decent story, decent storytelling and writing, and just people who generally care and get Star Wars. That's all we want. That's not too much to ask for, is it?
no, not at all. And if you can't get that magic back, accept that. Try
Yeah,
something different with the great
yeah,
franchise you've got.
yeah,
Something totally different, something completely. You know what? The Skeleton Crew could be amazing. What I've looked at it so far, I don't think it's for me. Do you know what I mean? And then what
yeah.
I'm hearing about this new Star Wars film, this activist director rubbing everyone's nose up the wrong way again. And this
That
all
won't get made.
Ray,
That
and
won't
it's
get
like,
made.
are they stupid, these people? Or are they just trying to convince us that, no, you're wrong? We're not wrong. It's not the
Yeah,
Star Wars we love. Get it back to the
yeah,
Star Wars that people generally fell in love with. New characters, create them. Look at Return of the Jedi when Luke walks in at the very beginning of Jabba's palace. He's all dressed in black. It's the first time you ever see it. For a start, I'm like, why is he in black? Is he turned to the dark side? Is his dad got him? It's been 3 years since Empire.
yeah,
We don't
yeah,
know. He walks into Jabba's palace and basically says to him, if you don't give me Captain Solo, I'm killing all of you in here. That's what he basically says to him. None of you are
yeah,
going to survive. I'm telling you now, even though you don't believe me, if you don't give him up, you're all dying. You're all getting it. And they don't believe him. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, he's now cooler than Han Solo. Now all of a sudden, he's the guy that we're all like, oh my God. Like,
yeah,
look at, Luke's got these powers now, and he's talking to Han Solo twice as different. You know what I mean? I was born here and all that. You just stay next to Chewie, you'll be all right. You're like, hang on a minute. Where's this come from? It's like, it was
yeah,
mind blowing.
yeah.
Character development. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Si,
Jane,
this has been an absolutely outstanding conversation, mate. I've loved every minute of it. Thank you so much. Really do
yeah,
appreciate
no
you
problem.
taking the
Thanks for having
time
me
to listen
on.
to it. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. And for those of you who have stayed to the end, watched, listened, whatever you do, just want to say thank you. Take care, stay safe, and see you in the next one. Bye for now.